Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We are excited to have one of our great customers nationwide join today's webcast. They're going to share their journey with Paxata and the strategies that they have put in place to modernize their data quality and data integration initiatives at Nationwide. My name is Farnaz Erfan. I am the head of product marketing here at Paxata, and I am joined by Mark Markshalak and Aaron Bell from Nationwide. The agenda for today is pretty simple. I will give a very, very quick introduction, 2 or 3 minutes about Paxata for those of you who are newer to our platform, but we want to spend majority of the time with Mark and Aaron to really walk through their journey and understand their use case. So data and analytics, as we know it, is really at the heart of any transformative initiative for any business. But if you guys have ever managed an analytics project, you know that the majority of the time for that project is spent on preparing the data, cleaning it, and making it ready for analytics. And very little time is spent on actual decision making or analytics or insight creation of the project. The reason for it is that the tools that have been available for data quality or data integration in the market have traditionally been designed for an IT user. And in IT, we very seldom have full business context about, what the data is supposed to mean or represent. So that is at the heart of what we do here at Paxata. We're bringing self-service data preparation to business users, to business analysts, so that they have the ability to find data, access data, profile it, prepare it, and clean it for analytics. We have a number of our customers on this slide. As you can see, the use cases for our customers are pretty broad. We cover anything around creating a single view of your customer or supplier or employee, all the way to preparing data for compliance reporting, as well as we've seen application migrations that happen with Paxata. But today and here we are to really learn about the use cases that Nationwide has put in place and the strategies that they have built to democratize data and make data quality and data integration available to their teams. So with no further ado, it's my great pleasure to turn the table and the mic over to Mark to take it from here.
Thank you very much for the introduction. As stated earlier, we're from Nationwide Insurance. And if you move to the next slide, what I'd like to do is just cover some basic information about what we are, who we are, what we cover, what we do as an organization. As you look, obviously attention is clearly drawn to where we're number one. And if you look at those items, we are number one in 457 retirement plans, total small business owners insurance, and we're the number one writers of farms and ranches across the country. What I really like to call out and what a lot of folks don't realize is that we're also number one in pet insurance. And for those that are maybe not as familiar with pet insurance, we are probably the industry leader and own approximately 43% of the market when it comes to pet insurance. So if you are a pet owner and have an interest in pet insurance, I encourage you to take a look at our website and dig up a little more detail on that type of product. With that said, and if you can move to the next slide, as you would expect with a big organization like we just described on the previous page, analytics is something that's extremely important within the Nationwide enterprise. And with the importance and with the attention it gets, it also comes with a few challenges that we have been historically faced or challenges that we're up against. These challenges can be really broken up into 3 primary areas. One, the analytics are spread across multiple areas and really conducted in a federated fashion. Which means not everybody may be doing things or leveraging the same tools in the same way and arriving at the same level of insight in as efficient of a time as possible. Number 2, there are varying levels of skills of folks doing these types of analytics. As indicated in the documentation, some are data scientists, which are more advanced analytic resources. and some are admins within offices that have just inherited some sort of reporting or analytics. So when we're looking at how we can improve our ecosystem or environment, we are really looking at how do we cover each of those various personas and identifying the right tool sets in order to cover the broad range of skills that are out there in the organization. Also, the other challenge that we're frequently faced with is we produce differing levels of insight, and it can be done in a very inefficient way. What does that mean? Some reports can be very basic reports that just show historical trends across what has been accomplished, and it can take maybe a week to 10 days in order to produce those, while others may produce more advanced analytics that really lead to increased revenue or increased or reduced expenses, and they can be done at a longer or a shorter period of time. One of the things that have been done in order to address these challenges and maximize the efficiency of analytics is really to create the Enterprise Data Office within Nationwide Insurance. That's where Aaron Bell and myself align. And if you go into the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about our specific team within the Enterprise Data Office. We are a part of the Capability Uplift team, where if you look at the challenges we previously highlighted on the last slide, our team is specifically devoted to improving and addressing some of those difficulties that have been experienced across the enterprise. So from a mission standpoint, we foster data capabilities across the enterprise, and we're focusing at all levels of skill and all areas across the organization. And what we try to do are really centered on three specific topics. Number one, we maintain a list of capabilities and the technologies that support those capabilities. Within a large organization, as I'm sure many of the folks that are here listening to this webinar can attest, there are a lot of technologies that are out there, many of which are owned by various organizations of our size. And what we're trying to do is how can we stay on top of what's available for our users to consume at any given point. The next item that we focus in on is advocating new technologies that can either address the efficiency or the skill gap or the time to insight. So we're constantly scanning the market for new alternatives that will address and tackle those respective challenges moving forward. And then finally, and this is probably where, in my opinion, we spend the most time as a team, is we deliver a personalized approach for supporting data-focused business and IT users. We do a lot of coaching, a lot of mentoring, a lot of meeting with individuals to talk about the technologies they're leveraging and looking for ways to find or identify opportunities for how we can do things better. So I would probably say most of our time is spent, I would guess maybe 70 to 80% of our time is spent in that third bucket across our respective team. So that's our Capability Uplift team. Then if you look at the problems, in addition to the ones we stated earlier at an enterprise level, now we're going to get a more focused look into some of the analytic situations that we face on a day-to-day basis as we work with our business and IT users. And I'm sure, once again, that many of the organizations that are on this webinar will attest. These are not unique to Nationwide, and they are things that we are all faced with on a day-to-day basis. Some of those things that we're focused in on, what data do I need and where is it? That is a huge one for us, and as you would expect with a large organization, we have data everywhere, and we have large amounts. We have external data. So knowing what data and where it is, that is a huge challenge that we are constantly faced with on a day-to-day basis. Once they do, or once they figure out what their data is and what they want, the next step that they're faced with challenges on is, how do I combine it? How do I blend it? What are the tools that are out there today that can help me bring this data together into a useful data set that I can then analyze and draw the insights that I'm looking for? As you would expect, moving into the third challenge, I need to provide quick insights. The speed with which insights are needed in today's environment it's unimaginable how quick people are looking for answers to the questions they have. And typically what we've been faced with, if you aren't able to answer the questions they have through the quick insights, they've oftentimes moved on to another question by the time you're answering the question they had previously, and the answer you're giving is no longer relevant to the challenges that they're faced with. And then the final two steps, I need to find some repetition. Hey, I found this nugget of information that is useful. How can I repeat it so I can keep that insight coming to the individuals that find it most valuable? And last but not least, and I think this step or this challenge is something that we face quite a bit being in a large organization with a lot of change. I took a new role. How can I make sure my data lives on or my report lives on? And those are the things that as you drill down into the analytic problem, when we are working with our business areas or IT users, those questions come up quite frequently in the development and creation of reporting and analytics. So if you go to the next slide, what we had found through our work as we looked at new technologies is that Paxata really was a solution and a technology that was really able to meet and address some of the challenges and steps that we discussed on the previous page. What we've done and how we've done it, if you look at the sequence that we've addressed last time, what data do I need and where is it? Well, Paxata allows us to curate those data sets. It allows us to put it into an environment that can make it available for other users. And it gives us a catalog of information that others can tap into for when they want to leverage that information in order to create the insight and analytics that they're looking for. I found it. Now how do I combine it? This is Paxata's wheelhouse from my perspective. When we provide this tool to the users, it is a very nice, easy step-by-step flow of aggregating the data that they're curating and putting together into a consumable format. And it is something that our users have raved about in helping them create a data set that's needed for reporting and analytics in a much quicker time period than previously experienced through the use of tools like Excel or even reaching out to IT in order to curate those items. I need to provide quick insights. These quick insights where before we were looking at things on small scale, small data sets, we can now look at things at a much grander scale so we can have more data that can lead to greater insights and greater comfort that the insights we are identifying are things of importance to our business users. I need to repeat this once again, another very, very nice feature what we found in Paxata. There's an automation functionality that exists. We have a lot of users that take advantage of this automation, and it really takes the pressure from them to make sure they're aggregating the data on a regular basis, and it does it for them without even thinking about it. And then finally, the taking of a new role. We are starting to see this more as the data and analytic skills become more in demand. And what we've seen is that when the curated data set resides in Paxata, we have an easy transition from the prior owner to the new owner. And this allows us to really continue the insights and analytics without really dropping a beat or missing a step. And so that's how we've used Paxata. And if you look for each of these items and we move into the next slide, we have more than just anecdotal use cases for what's taken place. We've really identified, and these are just two of many scenarios that we've experienced here at Nationwide that have really added tangible value to the organization and to data and analytics within our organization that we wanted to make sure we called out. And we split it up into direct value and indirect value. Direct value meaning the Paxata application was specifically related and tied to the achieved savings or revenue opportunity that was there. The indirect value is more around Paxata was one piece of the ultimate puzzle that was used to achieve these types of savings. So our first indirect value add that we identified and wanted to call out, our finance organization, as part of some of the work that they do on a regular and ongoing basis, they need to attach premium data to the right territory to make sure that we are reporting things on a statutory basis correctly, and we have to do that on a monthly basis. Our Paxata has been used to aggregate over 300 million rows across multiple disparate systems, bringing that data together and make sure that we are allocating our premium dollars to the right state, and it has a potential savings that is in the process of being validated of approximately $7 million. This is a huge win for our organization and is really something that the team has been very excited about in leveraging Paxata along with several other tools in order to achieve that expense savings. The next item, which is more of our direct value, this is where Paxata is actually leading and giving the savings or the solution that's out there. Our life insurance operation, they were doing some blending of data for system audits. They were doing it in Excel. It was taking an extensive amount of time. As they pivoted the disparate data sets from the multiple systems into Paxata, what they've started to realize is approximately 52 hours of savings for reporting resources that they will be allowed to leverage for other activities across the organization. And there was a significant reduction in the turnaround time to complete the audit by approximately 8 weeks. So while not direct dollar savings per se, it does allow us to have $400,000 more of resources available to actually do other work that's value added to the organization that they could not previously do. So from our perspective, and like I said, these are two of many, we've seen Paxata creating direct and indirect value as it's been leveraged as either a standalone application or as part of a suite of reporting and analytic tools that have arrived at an end state where savings have been realized from an expense perspective or revenues have increased. So those are the two use cases we have, and with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron Bell to talk about how we've achieved these types of, how we achieved this type of success with Paxata.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so we wanted to talk a little bit about our user adoption strategy for Paxata. So we, just like everyone else, we're constantly looking at new technologies. And when you're evaluating those technologies and you come to the point where you decide that you're going to move forward with one, you want to make sure you have a plan in place to get the best return on that investment. You make the most of your time and money with that new application. You know, too often new technology comes on board and it gets put on that shelf and nobody knows, you know, where it is or what it does. So you really want to have a plan in place to drive user adoption. And this is, at a high level, this is our plan for Paxata. So when we first brought it on, just getting started, we showed it at a high level to a lot of our internal knowledge sharing events throughout the enterprise. Then we started to do a lot of targeted demos to a wide variety of departments, individuals, groups, teams, where we sat down, did a really in-depth demo of the tool, tailored it to their kind of use case, made it relevant to them, and we still do that quite a bit today. Right now, we are doing a lot of individual consulting on Paxata. We'll actually go and sit down at one of our users' desks and work with them through a use case or just getting ramped up. We host consulting days once a month where our users can schedule time with us throughout the day and come in and meet in a room and attack it as kind of a groupthink situation where we help them again work through their use cases. And so really, this is all about a personal. Right now, this is about a personal approach to user support and user adoption of Paxata, and that's very intentional. And a lot of people will say, is that personal approach really feasible, scalable? And the answer is, we think the answer is yes, but to a point. And that point is when you've really curated your user community for that application. And at that point, the community can kind of take care of itself. Whether it's our internal community or it's Paxata's community online, the community starts to take care of itself, and we can start to focus more on strategic initiatives for Paxata. If we go to the next slide. So why are we pushing Paxata to the enterprise level? Well, mainly because it meets a common need. So if you're a data worker of any sort, more than likely you can use Paxata. Right now we have anyone from data engineers to data scientists to SQL developers, primarily business analysts, and even people that are brand new to data and analytics, all using Paxata today. And it's not just relevant across personas, it applies to a lot of different disciplines. So you can see our list there of all the teams that are using Paxata at Nationwide. First of all, Mark mentioned 2 use cases where we were extracting a lot of value, significant value using Paxata. That was from 2 different teams. Right now we have 76 teams. So when you look at that value at the enterprise level across all those teams, it's massive. So if you kind of drill down into these teams, you see a lot of our product offices. So our product offices are looking at this. So whether it's personalized insurance or life and annuity products, they're looking at, a lot of those offices are heavy in Excel. So they're sourcing data into Excel, manipulating it, sending that Excel document to someone else, do the same thing. So they're using Paxata to, again, source data in, but a lot more data than they could before, and heavily using the sharing capability in Paxata to share data with their colleagues instead of emailing it back and forth. And that way you really leverage the automation piece as well. And then if you look there, we have like audit teams and accounting. They're looking at it from they like these very structured steps and documentation. So they can go at it and look at it, step by step. This is how data was transformed. If they have any questions during audits or, whatever they're accountable for, they can look at that granularity and see exactly how something, some answers transpired. So I think that gives kind of a good visual of how those are 2 completely different teams looking at it completely differently, but still getting a lot of value from that. So again, we are focused on pushing this to an enterprise level because the more people that are using Paxata, the more efficiencies you gain. Again, with automation, it's a lot easier to share large data sets in Paxata than it is to email or replicate data in shared drives, that kind of thing. We're getting much quicker insights with Paxata between automation and the scalability. And the more data that this is really a best practice from a data governance perspective, the more we can keep our data up in the cloud instead of bringing it down onto our desktops and that kind of thing, the better off we are. So as you can see right now, we're adding about 35 new users a month. Again, we've got 76 teams, and we're actually nearing 600 users right now. And it seems that we are not slowing down at all. So we're looking forward to quite a bit more growth, even beyond what we have right now, because again, we are seeing a lot of value at the enterprise level.
Wow. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mark and Aaron. Really appreciate it. This is such a fantastic story. I mean, the scale in which you have enabled your teams and grow the use of data preparation across so many different teams, reaching 600 total users now, as it's very impressive, the discipline you have around it, the strategy you have around it to really think about adoption from day one all the way to what is your target, and step by step really looking at each phase and personalizing your message for different teams is very impressive. I've in my career of BI and in BI and data management, I honestly haven't seen something like this with this much thoughtfulness. So really appreciate you sharing this story with our audience today and being on this webcast. Fantastic story. So we have an opportunity for those of you who have joined today to ask questions. So go ahead and enter your questions in the questions box, and I will we'll get to it and go through the questions one by one. All right. Okay, so there's a question here that's coming from: how do people share ideas and best practices at Nationwide? How do you guys share ideas and best practices today within your teams?
So again, I think we mentioned we have a lot of internal knowledge sharing events. So we'll call it like lunch and learns, where we sit down and bring your lunch and someone shares the topic of the day. We have training events. So like once a month on a Thursday, we'll do training on a variety of different data and analytic applications. So again, we presented Paxata as those. We have an internal, internal conferences every year where you can schedule time to present your, whatever you're working on or application you support, that kind of thing. But we also have, on the lighter side, we've got, Yammer communities stood up. And again, when you curate that community around an application or a capability, those community leaders will set up, schedule time and meetup sessions for those groups.
And just a couple other items that I want to share and add on to what Aaron has already said. We also have a SharePoint site where we house a lot of our best practices, so it's easy access for any of the users that are out there today. And then, as I mentioned before, we are accountable for monitoring and maintaining capabilities. And in our capability inventory, we also have documentation that allows folks to see what that technology is available and how to navigate the various areas of information that are out there today. So we really try to pride ourselves on giving multiple channels of sharing information so that anybody can find the information in whatever way they feel most comfortable.
Awesome. That sounds wonderful. And is it more use cases and kind of functionally how people are doing pricing or doing accounting within the tool, or is it capabilities and feature oriented that, this capability and this way of ingesting the file or joining your data, is it feature oriented or use case business oriented?
So it's more capability oriented. So we present this to so many different disciplines, so many different teams, that we find that it's better to focus on the capability of the tool and let them provide their own context, because it's so wide. We've had a lot of success doing that.
Nice. Okay, great. Well, thanks for sharing that. That makes a lot of sense and makes a lot of difference when there's a continuous repetition and sharing of ideas. So the next question is, someone is asking, how do you really change people's ingrained behavior? For example, those who would like to continue using Excel.
I will start off, and I'm sure Aaron will build upon what I'm about to say, but I'll tell you the biggest focus area is the last bulleted item that I had in our mission area, and it's really giving that end user one-on-one attention, the multiple forums that are allowed for the end user to consume it in whatever way, shape, or form they want to. But what we've really found is that if you want to change the behavior of those individuals, and we're not perfect, and we have a long way to go, we really have to make sure we give them the right level of attention, especially if they're experiencing challenges with leveraging the solution, because when they know they have somebody they can fall back on as they're going through this learning process, it makes the adoption a little less, it's not perfect, but it makes it a little less painful, and then it starts to build their confidence with moving forward with the solution.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It's all about that personal approach. And we focus on, what's your current state, but what could you be doing with this new technology?
Right. So you highlight the things that are possibly limitations, perhaps they couldn't do in Excel, and maybe they could do it in Paxata. So that it's just teaching what they don't, they're not familiar with today, and the potential they could get out of the tool.
Absolutely. And usually if we have that opportunity where we're sitting with them, coaching them on a question they do have, what we try to show them is the question that they don't yet know they're going to have, and really help them see the bigger picture with all of the capability and functionality there is versus just answering their question.
Right.
And what we find is that usually gets the ball rolling. It gets them excited. It gets them moving forward, and it's a great win-win situation for both of us.
Okay, great. Makes sense. Fantastic. Next question is asking, do you manage the automation of data prep projects within your team, or does the automation happen in each team?
So we really focus and promote self-service. So whatever the activity is in Paxata, the individual owns their data, they own the workflow, they own the entire workflow, and we help them empower to own that workflow so they can manage it themselves. They're not relying on us, when the time comes for them to execute on the project.
Got it. Okay, so you have given them the capability for automation as well. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Okay, and then one of the questions is asking that we are a mid-sized company, different in our setup. Does the product need a centralized team to roll out? How much time and effort does it take to onboard Paxata? I'm not sure if you guys have any color around that, but maybe you can kind of answer that, and I can give some examples as well if that's needed.
I think I'll take a stab at answering this question, and Aaron, please keep me honest on any of these items. I know that once we got to a point where we were ready to start rolling this out, and I will say this, being in a big organization, there were a lot of hoops that we needed to jump through in order to enable the capability, a lot of agreements, a lot of bureaucracy that we had to work through in order to make sure we could get the application operationalized. But once we flipped the switch and said, hey, we're going from a POC, new product, we're just testing and feeling the water, flip the switch and pivot to more of a, let's get this out to the masses. I would say the turnaround time, and it all depends on how you qualify the time it takes. In my opinion, I would say within the first 6 months, we already had traction. And good traction. We had the buzz. We had people talking about it. We were having people show interest. I would say within the 6 to 12 month mark, that's really when we started hitting our strides and really started making an impact with respect to the resources that are out there today doing the work. And right now, I would say we're still adding people, but the pace of change is relatively slow. Because we've already hit a lot of the folks that we would want to have using the application. And so now we're just more, how can we enhance? How can we find better ways? So I would say within a year, we were probably firing on all cylinders, maximizing the implementation to our various users across the enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would just say it highlights the importance of, again, having that plan in place. To get the return on your investment, because you can tailor your own plan, whatever works for your organization. But the consequence of not putting that work in and having a plan in place is, again, low adoption and not getting the best return that you would get.
Right, absolutely. That's really great and pretty accelerated results for you guys. I met members of your team, Jeff as well. How large is your team, Mark and Aaron?
Boy, that's a very sensitive topic right now. I say that in jest, but right now we are 4 people, not including myself, so including me 5.
Okay.
And which is why when we talk about the channels and the means of communicating that information out, we are trying to do as much of that curation of data that they would need in order to leverage the application and making it as self-serving as possible, because we are such a small team and we support other applications within our organization. So it's a balancing act for us, and it's something where we always, the general rule for us is always default to what gives something self-service. Mm-hmm. If it's what videos, if it's best practices, what can we put on a SharePoint site or post to a Yammer page?
Right, absolutely. You want to make it as repeatable as possible, because you really you're a small team. Considering you have about 500 people, that's very impressive.
And one of the other advantages that we've seen as we've helped people along the change curve is that they then can become advocates. And a lot of times if people come to us that, hey, do you know somebody that's doing this, or can you help me with this? A lot of times we can reach out to our champions, and they are happy to assist other users in solving some of their problems. So they've been a great outlet for us as well in helping us move and advance the cause of implementing Paxata.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I have one more question myself personally. You alluded to it that it's on the slide here where multiple personas use Paxata, meaning that you said majority are analysts, but there are some data scientists. So just curious on if you have any color around how would a data scientist within Nationwide, what benefits they get from the tool that you can share with the audience?
So, from the data scientist community, Paxata is useful if you look back historically with data science operation, you do a lot of your data prep through code, right? Take a lot of time to write code to prep your data. Paxata is very easy, it's quick, it's efficient, and it's very repeatable. Again, with the code, it's going to take you time, and then if you have to share that code with someone, you've got to explain it to them and hope someone else can pick it up and understand it. Whereas with Paxata, it's very easy to share and understand how the data was prepped. So whatever modeling activity you're doing, it's just a really clean way to prep the data and get it into whatever reporting or analytic environment you're using.
Got it. Yep, absolutely. It's useful across the board, and thanks for sharing that. So with that, it really wraps up all the questions that we've been asked. I want to thank our guest speakers today, Mark and Aaron. Thank you so much for being on the call and sharing your story and journey and what you've built out. Very impressive. And I hope that this was useful for our audience. Thanks everyone for joining today. Really appreciate your time as well. There is a link to our trial available. We also hold a product live webcast every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific. So you get the chance to see the product demo and ask questions from one of our solution engineers that is on the call every week. So with that, thank you everyone for joining, and love to see you again.